sometimes those of us who are not in the position to do what he did, I'm not going to speak on it that way because I wouldn't do it. But I damn sure am not going to condemn him, especially if I can understand why he fucking did it. Outside of saying the fact that he was wrong because of what I said before. So, I mean, it's a tough situation. And it's funny because I was not trying to be funny, but if in the body cam, because you guys mentioned it before, you're not able to see what happens, then it's like this whole, he got a gun. That's some bullshit at any cop. I'm not saying that there's any justification because even if his son was done dirty or whatever, it's not a justification for what he did. Unless it was the right person, because then you could say, hey, man, I saw him, and I went. But now for just to be a random person, it's going to be hard to prove. I'm just saying we as Black people know that we can understand what he's going through, especially if it's your kid. Jay, you mentioned if it was you, bro. I don't even like saying things like that because I can't tell you what I would do if it was me. So how would I be hypocritical to be like, oh, I would never do what he did, and then I found myself in a position where I'm on the other side. And I can't tell you that I would not be if it was my one and only son that it took me all this time to motherfucking create. You play about mine, my nigga. You know what I'm saying? That's why there's a part of me that resonates with what he went through because I'm not saying I would do it. I'm not justifying it, but come on, man. Come on, man.
I did not finish the statement, but I guarantee I would not run down a stranger.
Okay. I mean, I hear you. I mean, I hear you.
Yeah. You're going to be on the right person.
Oh, I'm going to be very direct and pointed and precise.
Yeah. And this is the disclaimer at the top.
Yeah, this is entertainment purposes.
This is entertainment purposes
right.
only. There are no professions on this.
That's right. These jokes.
Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah. I think it's an unfortunate crash out, as the kids call it. You know, I don't think there's any other thing you can call it really other than a psychological break. I think a sane person, to the Nick's point, it wouldn't say, you know, I'm going to run this guy down and, you know, spend the rest of my life in prison. That doesn't help the situation at all. And I don't think anybody wants to live in a world with, you know, rampant vigilantism like Gotham or some weird shit like that. So, that's the only, I thought about, that's the only thing you can kind of ascribe it to. And that's really kind of the only defense he has at this point. There's no other way to, to spin it or try to frame it. That this is literally the only framing mechanism you have. And it's unfortunately, it's the one that kind of fits and that kind of neatly explains it. But he's gotten nowhere else to go. And again, there's nothing I would do. There's nothing I would advise anybody else to do. Right. It's even on my own behalf. Like, don't crash out on my behalf. Just let justice play out, and we've seen it play out. Like in in the George Floyd case, that played itself out in the legal system, and it ended up where it ended up at. But crashing out is definitely not the answer. It doesn't help anybody.
Hey, real quick, I want to say this real quick, SNL, because I feel like Devin was being sneaky funny with crashing out. I mean, I'm sorry in my heart.
Too soon. You know what? I just subconsciously used that, and I didn't even think about it. It's definitely too soon to call it a crash out.
I'm sorry. And I just want to also make note that I don't believe that Mr. Hinton Jr. had a record. So it wasn't like he has a history or anything in terms of committing any type of crime. Just want to kind of submit that to the record as well. But go ahead, SNL.
So I'm going to represent the internet in this case. And I'm going to say a couple of things that may be controversial. And so there are some people who say about damn time. Because the reason why they're saying this, as Nick mentioned earlier, there are other incidents of where someone took it upon their own to basically attack cops and whatnot. But they're saying about damn time because they're saying, how much can we take? How many times do we have to deal with the killing of an unarmed or armed Black person, particularly a young person, considering that they have no problem taking armed white men into custody, armed white boys into custody, and by all accounts, the boy was actually running away and they claimed he turned around. Now, here's my issue with my personal issue with the story in regards to the gun. We've seen time and time again where they fabricated evidence. We've seen time and time again where they fabricated or they'll yell gun to justify something. And what caused concern was when I believe it's the sheriff, when he said, hey, he turned around. We're not going to wait to see if there's an actual gun. He made this statement. I was like, wait, what? And so they already and I understand because my husband was a police officer in our previous life as well, right? And so he's one of those things like he's not going to wait too long, but damn, could he got a second? Like if he just turned around, how did you know it was a gun? And I understand that you want to go home to your family too, right? I understand that. And so I understand the fear and the adrenaline that's running through you as you're chasing somebody that's running away from you. And so But their issue is that we've seen time and time again. So you talked about George Floyd. He's one of many, but one who actually got justice, so to speak, right? Whereas there's so many who didn't get justice because they was able to walk away because they claimed they saw a gun and then there was no gun on site, or there was no, or they're like, oh, there was a knife, or there was this, or it was that. But they got to say, I feared for my life, and that was enough for that person to walk away. And I think in this father's mind, he did have a mental break because, to be honest, I don't understand why he killed a random sheriff who was literally directing traffic after a graduation, and so he had to been driving down the street, and this is just me guessing, of course, hypothetical. He probably was driving down the street and was like, there's a cop. And then he blacked out and ran full speed into the cop because he was thinking, I'm about to bury my son in the next week or 2 weeks or whatnot because these people shot my son and my child. And I don't know if that's his only child, but I get the feeling it kind of was, or maybe not. I haven't looked that far into the detail, but people are saying, when is enough enough? How many times do we have to see this story played out? How many times? And so while this father operated independently, it was a sign of relief from some people who was like, about time. Yeah, he's standing on business. He 10 toes down. He's putting his mouth, or is it the money? Yeah, that's it. He's putting his money where his mouth is.
Putting the
And,
pedal,
right?
putting his pedal to where his mouth is. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. So sorry. So sorry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for apologizing.
S&M set it up. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Too
headphones
soon,
all around.
right? I appreciate you apologizing.
You guys
for
are
that,
so
though.
insensitive tonight.
And so I just think that, so from the internet reaction, there's like, hey, there are some people who are saying, hey, they're going to take, for every one, they're planning on taking 5, right? Because they can't identify, or they can't get to that direct person who may have done something. So they're going to hit the 5. And they're like, maybe it's time for us to have this type of violent reaction. Now, I personally don't necessarily think it's time for us to have this violent type of reaction because we already know that they're waiting for something. They're waiting to trigger. They're waiting, right? And so, but that could be conspiracy as well, about them waiting for the race war that for some reason people keep trying to start. And you have people with manifestos recently saying they're trying to start a race war. And so, because once again, when is enough enough? And when do we react? And how do we react? And how do we move as a community so that we can ensure that our community is safe? Jay, you mentioned about us policing ourselves, but did you know that in Ohio, I think it was Toledo, where they had the KKK or the neo-Nazis who basically bombarded this neighborhood? So they decided to make their own patrol. And then the news interviewed them as if they were the ones that fought, because they decided to have their own patrol and do kind of like what the Black Panthers used to do back in the day. And so it becomes, well, that's already being viewed negatively and being shamed negatively, even though it was a response to neo-Nazis walking through their neighborhood. And I'm just saying that at some point, we either need to organize to figure out how we can move ahead, or and we also need to continue to, personally, I feel, continue to use our dollars and support Black. Although some people do not believe that supporting Black businesses is a thing. But yes, please buy Black, support Black, and so forth. And that's my ya la 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 moment for Black support, Black business. Back to the situation, though, I just want to say that both families lost somebody. It's a shame that 2 lives were lost, and that one person, if he has a family, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, because there's no way he can get around this. And he knows this. And that's why he walked into court with the meanest mug he could have on his face, his head held high, and I'll do it again. And so it's a sad story all around.